Hello guys and welcome back to The Work. In today's podcast, I want to be discussing something that I'm a big believer of looking at and focusing on and building on, and that's our mindset, our mental health. And I think when it comes to mental health, we've all got different ideas on what that is and what that means to us. And I'm going to start by helping you use a frame that helps me when I'm describing it with clients. So how we think about it is a bit like your physical body. And unless you train your physical body, you probably realise that you're not going to be as physically strong or robust or as fit. That might seem pretty obvious. But when it comes to our mindset, when it comes to our mental fitness, our mental health, we don't think about it in the same way. But I'm going to encourage you to think about it in the same way in this podcast. I'm going to break down some key areas today that you can assess and look at yourself so you can understand whether or not you're in a good place mentally. Because if you wanted to understand if you're in a good place physically, we could test that. I could get you in the gym, I could do some tests in how your body's moving, how it's functioning, etc, etc. And of course there's subjective numbers here that we could use. But hopefully you get the idea, you get the kind of metaphor here that working on your body physically is in the same way as working on your body mentally, but it's not as tangible, is it? It's a bit more messy in some ways, it's a bit more complex. So this is a big area when we think about mental health and mental fitness and your mindset. It could be a 5-hour podcast. It won't be, luckily for you guys, but I'm going to try and condense some of the kind of key areas that I think is worth considering, so you can ask yourself the question, am I in a good place mentally? And it's something I want to mention now, and I'll probably mention it again, that this isn't kind of a fixed destination that we're aiming for here. It isn't kind of like you are mentally healthy or you're not. It's just a bit of a spectrum, and sometimes, you might take a bit of a battering through life. You might just be running autopilot, just trying to keep your head above water, survive. Feeling quite overwhelmed, quite stressed, quite under pressure. You haven't got time to be thinking about how are you feeling mentally. I get it. You just got to crack on and get stuff done. But if you listen to this podcast, you are someone who's willing to invest in their health and their well-being holistically. You're a man that wants to grow, that wants to develop, that wants to build a good, strong, robust mindset. So half the battle is listening to these types of podcasts, and the other half the battle is actually working on and executing some of the things I'm going to talk about today. And some of them might be practical, but a lot of them are going to be a bit more internal. So I'm going to share some key areas, give you some awareness, and give you some kind of key insights into some of the things that I've worked on personally, that I work on with my clients, and some of the key areas that I think that men can work on to really have a strong, robust and resilient mindset. Whether or not we want to use the word mental health or mental fitness, I don't think it matters too much. I'll probably use that a bit interchangeably because I'm thinking about it in the same way we would the physical body. If you're physically fit, you're contributing towards your physical health. But we know these things are complex. There's loads of factors, loads of variables getting involved here. So that we go on a tangent now, let's crack on with the first area. So the first area I want to think about is we're going to go down two parts here. Self-esteem, and I'm going to talk about some key mindset principles. So self-esteem has been around quite a while, and I think sometimes we've picked up the wrong messages around self-esteem. And why I say that is because I think people see it as just feeling good about ourselves. When things are good, we feel great about who we are, happy days, brilliant. And I've oversimplified self-esteem there, I realise, but I generally think that's the theme that gets taken from people, and sometimes it also can seem a little bit fluffy. Well, I'm going to sort that out for you right now by saying that actually self-esteem is about definitely seeing your strengths and seeing the value you offer the world. Definitely, feeling good about the person you are. But that's not the whole picture. The other part of it means kind of accepting the fact that you're imperfect and really acknowledging some of the things that are your flaws, are your imperfections, are some of the things you failed at, and being able to be brave enough to accept responsibility without that damaging your identity. That's someone who's got a pretty good self-esteem, a pretty good self-confidence, a pretty good self-image, where they can go, you know what, my ego doesn't have to run the show here. I feel confident in this person that I am, but part of that confidence is knowing that I've made mistakes, I'll make future mistakes, and I don't have to let that become my identity. I don't let that have to knock me off my perch. We're just going to have some imperfections, and that's okay. Because what can happen on the other side of the mindset here is, nope, I can't show imperfection. I can't show flaws. I can't admit to any failures. I can't admit I'm ever wrong. No. I've got to put up this perfect version of myself to the world at all times to everybody. Well, how relatable is that? If you knew someone like that, would you be able to relate to them? Someone to go, yep, no, I'm good, I'm perfect, things are all great all the time. Done nothing wrong, I'm great. Now, I know intellectually you can get this. You can go, of course, James, I'm imperfect. Cheers, Einstein. That's intellectually. Can you start to come to terms with the emotional piece? I'll talk about this more later, but it does come into self-esteem. Because when you look at some of the parts of yourself that maybe you don't like, maybe you've buried a little bit, maybe, if you're honest, you might be a bit selfish at times. Okay, we can all be a bit selfish. Maybe there's bits of narcissism that creeps in your character. Maybe you can be overly judgmental. Maybe you react to your emotions constantly. Whatever, maybe you've made mistakes in the past and got things wrong. That is all okay if you're willing to take responsibility where responsibility needs to be taken, which is for your actions, not others' actions, not others' emotions, your actions. And you can see that, and you still can hold yourself in positive regard despite that. That's a tough place to be. Because often people on one side or the other, they're either, I can look at my flaws, or I feel terrible, and they ruminate on that, and they have so much regret and anguish in themselves that they're not able to move out of the reins of that pain. Or someone on the other side who really just paints a picture to themselves and to the world to protect themselves that they're kind of perfect, they've kind of got it all figured out. I don't know about you, it's not really someone we can relate to, and that means that will affect connection and relationships, which I'm also going to talk about later. So the key part of this mental health malarkey here, okay, is about just being able to face up to these things and look at them. And some of these things will be blind spots to you. There'll be certain things that you'll see in yourself, and certain things maybe you don't. You shut off to them, or you haven't experienced a situation in life that's highlighted this flaw to you. And that's a great thing about life, is that when you go through a bit more pressure, when you go through some difficulties in your relationships, some failures, some mistakes, that can highlight some of these flaws. And that's okay, that's not going to be a bad thing. It's an opportunity to learn about yourself and go, when I'm in a situation, I've noticed that I react like this. I don't particularly like that, but I wouldn't have known that about myself if I wasn't in this situation. Part of this self-esteem as well is catching yourself when you, all of us probably, to different shapes or forms, can start to become a bit critical of ourselves, a bit judgmental. And I think at first, when we do something that isn't aligned to our values, or we make a mistake, or we do something that we don't particularly like, it's probably going to be that initial kind of, you blooming idiot, I can't believe you've done that, prat, whatever. Now, a bit of criticism, a bit of negativity, a bit of judgment, understandable, towards yourself and maybe towards others. But if we can catch that and go, okay, I probably don't want to stay stuck in this mindset that I'm always someone that makes mistakes, I'm always getting it wrong, here we go again, over and over again. So you catch the thought, you catch that inner critic, and you learn to sort of let it go, and you learn to sort of gently shift towards more self-compassion. And that means just being able to have a bit of empathy for yourself, to go, well, most likely you didn't deliberately try and hurt somebody else. You didn't deliberately fail or make a mistake. You probably did your best with what you knew at the time, based upon your previous experiences and the skills you had at the time. And then if you can practice this stuff by reflecting and going, okay, maybe I need to work at that a little bit. Now you take ownership, now you take responsibility, now you can grow and develop. But part of this, I think, is having a healthy self-esteem. Because if you don't, you'll shy away from those things and go, don't want to be in that position again because that highlighted something in me that I don't like, so let's avoid that. Okay, well, avoid it if it's not in line with the direction you want to go in. Avoid it if that person is really toxic and doesn't serve you. Avoid it if it's not in line with your goals or what you want and where you want to go. But if it is, you're going to have to look at it and you have to work at it. So as I said, another key part, which I said earlier, I want to highlight this one, is being able to see your strengths. See the value that you're standing on. See the value in all these previous experiences you've had, the lessons you've got, the wisdom you've got, and see how that self-education and knowledge offers value to others. You can support, you can guide, you can be there. You can be that strong, resilient person because you've done the work. This is all about how you choose to frame things, working on your mindset. And part of this, one of the key areas in mindset is being aware when you're starting to get frustrated when life doesn't meet your expectations. Now, when life, other people, certain circumstances doesn't match how you think they should be, there will be some frustration, some irritation, some disappointment in you, in others, just in the world maybe. But again, it's the same principle. You catch that and go, okay, well, do I need to communicate to this person who's close to me that I'm disappointed? Potentially, if that's something that's going to be kind of coming up time and time again. Or is it something that I need to start to let go because I can't control the world, I can't control kind of what happens to me, I can control how I handle what happens to me, how I respond to what happens to me. That's what someone who's got a strong mindset can do. And they can start to accept life as it is rather than always trying to alter it to fit their expectations. And part of this strong mindset is ultimately focusing on what you can control and trying your hardest to let go of what you can't. That is strength, and it isn't easy. It takes work. Okay, so next section, guys, I want to be speaking a little bit about emotions. I'll touch on emotions most weeks, and there will be a more detailed, comprehensive podcast at some point on emotions. But part of your mental health is your emotional health. It's a key part of the puzzle. Today, I want to open the door to becoming more emotionally aware. Now, emotional awareness and intelligence probably doesn't mean you've got to be in a place where you can just label every single emotion, because when you first start out, the idea of that can be incredibly overwhelming, incredibly just hard to even get your head around because it's not very tangible. It doesn't seem that practical. It might not even seem that important. And a lot of men haven't been shown how to process, talk about, and open up to their emotions. So we just push them down, we suppress them, we just go, right, I've got the next thing to do, next thing to do, next thing to do. Oh, there's a little emotion here, let's put that in a box and push it away. All subconscious, of course, but it's how we function, it's what we do. Unless we start to see emotions a bit differently. We start to see the value in them. We start to realise we can listen to them. We don't have to be dictated by them. Our world doesn't have to be consumed by them, but we can create space to gather a bit more information from that sense. Your emotions are a bit of feedback. Your taste is a bit of feedback. Your smell, your hearing, your sight. And I put emotions into the same category. They're that important. But the other senses almost seem really obvious if we're struggling with one of them, or one shot off, we go, okay, obviously I'm going to struggle. With our emotions, we don't see it like that. Probably because many of us, men haven't really experienced a life where we've started to navigate and open up to emotions, so we don't know what it feels like to be in touch with them. So understandably, they're a bit scary, they seem a bit pointless, it's not worthwhile. Where do I even start? Well, with a lot of men, the place that I start is just saying, look, let's just give yourself a moment to breathe, okay? Because I see they're on the treadmill, next thing. There's never a moment to breathe. Just cultivating that time is step one. I'm not saying step one is easy, but it's vital, because you haven't got the time and the space. How can you even begin to navigate and understand it? Then you can start to think about, okay, maybe if you can't get in touch with the emotions, maybe you can get in touch with some of the feelings that's going on in your body. Is there some tightness somewhere? Does it feel more in your stomach? Does it feel more in your throat, in your chest, in your head? And start to think about, okay, what could that be? And what you're doing here is, by being open to it, you're allowing yourself to work through the emotion and over time loosen its grip on you. Because when you experience something in life, whether you like it or not, there's an emotional response to greater or lesser degrees, but there is. You might be so good at numbing your emotions, you're not even aware of the emotional response. If you're not aware of that, how can you begin to start to make better decisions in life? Because you're not really thinking about your feelings of something, you're just going, okay, well, that seems like it's the right idea. But how do you know you care about that thing? You've got to listen to your emotions. How do you know you really care about that person? Listen to your emotions. Not to say that we have to take every emotion at face value and go, oh, I feel like that, so that must be reality. For example, I don't know, I feel sad, so life is sad. Or I feel angry, so I'm an angry person. No, you feel sad, you feel anger, you feel regret, you feel some shame, you feel some excitement, some happiness, a spectrum of emotions. Some you'll be more open to than others. But what someone can do who's mentally aware, who's self-aware, who's mostly intelligent, can just go, okay, I might even be struggling to put this into words, but I'm just feeling a little bit off today. Maybe a little bit flat, a little bit low. Well, actually today, I'm feeling a bit sharper. And when someone can do this with their emotions and be aware of them, you can use them really well. You know, you can start to go, okay, well, I'm someone who can be in touch with my emotions, so I know when to turn it on and to be energized and excited. Okay, you become open to your emotions, you're going to have to experience the fact that you're going to have the good ones and you're going to have the difficult ones. What we tend to do subconsciously is go, don't like those difficult ones. I don't want to look at that shame. I don't want to look at that regret. I don't want to look at that kind of resentment I've got. So what I'm better off doing is shutting down to that. But when you shut down to that group of emotions, those difficult and uncomfortable emotions, you sometimes shut down to the positive, good ones as well. So I've scraped the surface there with emotional awareness, but what I'm trying to sell to you is the importance of at least giving yourself a breather, at least just asking yourself the question, how am I feeling? And the way you answer that will depend on the amount of emotional education you've had up to this point. How you answer that will depend on how much you practice this stuff, how much work you've done there. And if you haven't done any work, and you haven't been shown from any good male role models, then understandably you're going to be shut down and numb to what you're feeling and what you're experiencing emotionally. If you're shut down, you're shutting down your senses, and you're going to struggle in some of these other areas I'm going to talk about today. These other key areas come up in the podcast are vital for your well-being, are vital for your mental health. And you can't get as much out of these areas, no way near, if you're going to shut down and push away every single uncomfortable emotion. Just go, oh, I don't feel anything. No, you're human, you feel. It's just how aware of those feelings you are. How aware those feelings you are. Okay, if you're not very aware of them, you can't make better decisions, you can't build connection, you can't process things effectively. You're going to suffer in some shape or form. It's just, I think often a lot of men don't realise they're suffering until it builds and builds and gets to a place where it's obvious. But that suffering was happening years and years, decades before potentially. And it's just built and built and built through unhelpful reactions to emotions, maladaptive behaviour, suppress, push away. I'll just be happy when. I just need to do this to feel better about myself. I just need to create this success and life will be good. It doesn't work that way. Everywhere you go, there you are. If you don't work on you and you're struggling to process these things, you always will. They won't be fixed or they won't be improved until you start to do the work. I think sometimes, consciously or subconsciously, we're a bit scared, if we're really honest, because it's the unknown. It might feel weak, it might feel vulnerable, it might feel scary, it might feel uncertain to start to go, right, I've got to be open to these emotions now. And when you start to unlock that, that could be a lot of buried stuff that starts to come up, a lot of buried stuff from the past, which I'm going to go into in a second. I want to finish off this section by saying this. You don't have to let your emotions guide all of your decisions. You can be open to them, you can start to listen to them, you can start to build a better relationship with those emotions, so you've got a better understanding of yourself, who you are authentically, and use that as part of the puzzle to develop this kind of wise mind that I'll talk about at the end of the podcast. And this wise mind can communicate with the emotional piece, the logical and rational piece, and find the right path for you. But we need communication both ways. A lot of men are purely rational, purely logical, and wonder why they're still struggling. Okay, next phase, next part of this podcast is talking about processing the past. This is a massive thing. And in the future, I could do plenty of podcasts on understanding your past, but I want to open the door to it today because I feel like it's a part of our mental health that I think we struggle with, and we hear lots of contradictory advice from experts about this. And I like to try and, I suppose with a lot of my work, something not to sit on the fence at all, but it is to try and find a bit of a middle ground. Okay, I think we can become overly obsessive with our past, and potentially people start to unpeel layers and they don't know what to do with those things that they've unpeeled. They don't know how to practically integrate the lessons. They don't know how to accept. They haven't learned these skills. So processing the past isn't just distressing in a moment. It becomes so distressing it pulls them down a negative path. And that's not for everyone who uncovers the past at all. It just can happen. The other side of things, people say, past is the past. It's already happened. Don't worry about it. But I believe if you don't start to at least look and entertain how it's affected you, then you're missing a part of the puzzle here. So I'm going to try and keep this short because it's a massive area. It's deeper work. It's deeper work to look at yourself and your previous experiences. And some things you will be able to see right now and some things you won't. It's probably a bit more of a red flag to me personally when someone can be very black and white with their past and say, yeah, it was totally rubbish, parents are all rubbish, nothing was good about it, and that's it. Or they go, yeah, upbringing was perfect, brilliant, everything was great. It's never either or. There's a middle ground, and don't get me wrong, some people have more trauma and more stress in their upbringings than others, definitely. We know that as a fact. But we've all had things in our past that maybe emotionally we missed out on. Maybe there was some form of neglect. Maybe there was just some difficult experiences that we didn't have the tools to process at the time. And some of those experiences are still with us. Some of those wounds are still with us. And they can contribute to our health now. They can contribute to our reactions and our relationships, our identity, how we see ourselves, our self-esteem. So to not entertain the value of it, I personally see as a little bit naive. And to not be able to at least work on it to some degree, I think would be missing out on something really important here. Now, what can happen is your past can become a shadow in the present. So what will happen is your brain is like a predictive machine. It's remembered things from the past, especially things that have affected you emotionally, and those emotional memories can start to form a shadow over how you see the world, how you see yourself, how you cope and adapt to new relationships or long-term relationships. We start to form these different attachment types. We start to have codependency, or we start to push people away and avoid intimacy, or we start to become really anxious in relationships. All of these things are connected with our experiences in the past, especially our experiences with our parents or caregivers, and all of the people around us in our environment, how stressful the environment was as a child. Now you look back on that as an adult and you go, well, it's not a big deal, is it? No, parents separated, but I was fine. You're seeing it from an adult lens, but the 6, 7, 8-year-old you wasn't an adult. It had some, or you had some fear, some uncertainty. You might have felt quite lonely. You might have felt like you were lacking some sort of safety. Potentially, I don't know. But just by me discussing this, hopefully at least plants a seed in your mind that your past can dramatically dictate your quality of life in the here and now. And it does dictate to greater or lesser degrees. And I suppose the obvious thing here to say is that if you know you've had a challenging upbringing, has gone through some challenging experiences in your past, you have to give yourself some compassion here to get some professional help and start to process this stuff. Because if you're not processing it, you can never process everything. We're going to die with plenty of chapters of our past that we never even look at or understand or entertain. But if you can look at some of the big chapters that have affected you, and you can start to read through them and experience them, that can actually help loosen the grip. Now, I've oversimplified this stuff today. It's a massive subject, but I think for me in my coaching, I'm not here to be a top-end psychodynamic counsellor, but with a lot of clients that are struggling, I know a factor of that, a part of that, always is the past. And when we talk about the past, there's always something that's happened there that's affecting how they manage their emotions, how they manage their relationships in the present. So we understand the past to give us level 1 of how to cope with the present. Because level 1 is always awareness and understanding. And then we can start to build new tools. Okay, but you've got to understand first. How can you begin to fix? I'm careful with the word fix, because I don't mean fix to say that you're broken, but if you're trying to fix something in yourself that is holding you back or affecting your quality of life, you have to understand it first. And I work with a lot of clients who want to go into fix mode very quickly before understanding mode. I get it, because fixing is quick, it's simple, it's logical, it's rational. Understanding means being introspective. It means looking at emotions. It means understanding how things have affected you emotionally. That takes some deep work, but that could really unlock some important things for you. Because there might be some things you're holding on to, okay, from the past with parents, from previous relationships, and to find a way to be able to loosen its grip through empathy, forgiveness, compassion of yourself and others isn't easy. But coming to terms with that stuff will really help take some of the load that you're carrying off, okay? Because I suppose you have to remember that you're growing and you're developing and you're changing. You're not that past version of yourself, but also some of the people that have hurt you in the past, they're not that past version. It doesn't mean that what they did and how they hurt you was right. There could be some horrible things that has happened, but that has happened, and if you're not able to process that, that's really difficult. Okay, it's going to stay with you until you process it. Okay, I know it feels like it's getting a bit of a deep path there, but it's a really important one, guys. A part of this as well is just realising that if you can work on this emotional piece and you can understand the past, I really strongly believe you can start to trust yourself a little bit more, because you're building more understanding of yourself. How could you expect yourself to trust someone else if you don't really understand them, if you haven't spent time to build that relationship? Yet people will say, well, just trust yourself, trust your gut instinct. I'm like, well, that's all great saying that, but what if you don't really understand yourself? What if you haven't done any work on yourself? That gut instinct can send you all over the shop. It's a skill to be able to understand yourself so you can make the best decisions for you. But if you don't process, you don't understand emotions, you're flying by the seat of your pants hoping for the best. It's as simple as that. Okay, so last two sections really, guys. I just want to cover the big points here around kind of your mental fitness and mental health. Next one is relationships. There'll be a podcast on this, I think, next week. So if you want to learn more about relationships and building healthy relationships, creating more depth and connection in life, which is, I think, probably the most important thing you can do in your life. Next week, I'm going to go into this in more detail. But relationships. You kind of want to try and cultivate a world where you're not just relying on one person. Now, for some men, that one person might just be yourself. Or you might say that one person is your partner. But what happens if something happens to your partner? What I mean by that is I think a lot of men are actually far more lonely than what they realise. We haven't learned how to really connect properly. We haven't been shown how to connect properly. So we actually, deep down, we feel quite lonely, we feel quite unseen, and we've just developed this kind of mindset of, it's all right, we'll just crack on, we push forward. But deep down, men are struggling. Because part of a healthy relationship, again, like I mentioned earlier with yourself, is trust. Do you know, to trust somebody else? Well, first of all, you've got to have that ability to trust yourself so you can trust somebody else. Trust is developed through honesty, openness, some vulnerability, so someone can see you. Otherwise, you don't really know. Your trust is based upon a real surface level trust. Like level 1. Okay, seem like a good person, been quite nice, seem quite accountable, or seem quite reliable. I think I can trust them. Great, but if shit really hits the fan, could you really trust them? Now, do you want millions of people like that, thousands, hundreds of people like that in your life? No, of course not. Creating a smaller circle of a few people, a few mates, a few close friends that you think, you know what, if shit is the fan, they'll be there for me. I can pick up the phone and they can pick up the phone to me. That is hard to cultivate. That is really challenging because it means the things that I've mentioned here. It means being open, being honest at times. It means being okay to be vulnerable. It means actually sometimes making your circle of friends smaller rather than bigger. But I think that this is probably one of the biggest challenges for men in the modern world, is to develop better, closer relationships that aren't just surface level. And when you can do that and you can have some deeper conversations, it's incredible. Now, do you want every relationship to be deep and connected and vulnerable? No, you can keep some things surface level. You can keep it really kind of laugh and banter and have a few drinks with friends and talk about football or whatever. Like, there's nothing wrong with any of that at all. I'm not throwing that on the bus for 1 second. But what I am saying is that isn't enough. That is not enough. You need more than that as a person. Okay, you need to feel connected. You need to feel a sense of belonging. And part of that is, as human beings, to have a tribe. Doesn't matter if it's only a small group. If anything, better that it's a small group. Small group of people that you feel that you can trust and connect to. Now, to do this isn't about being liked by everybody, because you actually want to develop a group of people who can like you for you. And that means that you need to be authentic and understand yourself again. It's all connected, isn't it? You can't develop these quality relationships without doing the quality work on yourself. It's impossible, because you're putting up a fake version of yourself. You're thinking, oh, I'll act like this to fit in, to be accepted, to feel this attachment, to feel this validation. But you're getting validated and accepted based upon a false version of yourself. So you actually still feel lonely. When you're able to go, wow, you know what, I'm going to have some boundaries in life, and this is important to me, and this isn't. Or this person was in my life, but they're quite toxic, or they're not good for me right now, and actually this person over here is good, and I'm going to bring them in closer, and I'm going to have to put effort into that relationship and time and have some deeper conversations. But you need to understand this, because we need relationships. But part of relationships is setting boundaries, so you can still take care of yourself, and so you can go, well, these are my values and these aren't, so I'm not doing this thing in it anymore. Okay? You can protect yourself, and the people around you respect you for that. They respect you and care for you for being you. They're not trying to change you. They like you for you, and you're not trying to change them. You realise that they're not perfect. They know that you're not perfect. But everyone's okay with that, but everyone cares and supports each other. If you can just find a couple of people like that in your life, you are doing really, really well, okay? What can sometimes happen is people say, okay, well, I've got to have boundaries, got to self-care. And sometimes it's worth calling this one out. It might be rare, but I have seen it, is self-care becomes the escape. It becomes a kind of the time just to be on your own, and then there's no time for others. Now, to greater or lesser degree, or degrees, we need other people in our life. We do, to greater or lesser degrees, because some people maybe can do better with having less interaction, some people need more, but we all need it in some shape or form. So we just catch ourselves and say self-care is vitally important. Is it an escape? Is it a coping mechanism? It can be. The gym being a great example. Everyone who loves the gym, me included, you can probably relate to that at times. And it's not on a healthy coping mechanism until it starts to even negatively affect me or the people around me. So for example, extreme example might be me saying I'm doing self-care when I get to spend time with my daughter and I'm choosing the gym over spending time with her. Now my time with her is really valuable and actually the biggest priority in my life. So for me to use self-care as an excuse for saying, oh, I need it to be able to cope. Well, hang on, I've got my values out of line here. So I have to check in on our values and ask ourselves, am I using this as an escape or am I just using it as legitimate self-care? A slight tangent, but I wanted to mention that one. Okay, guys, last bit. It's flown by today. Finding and creating a balanced mindset to try and get as healthy perspective on things and situations as you can is a key part of your mental health, your mental fitness. So let's break some of the kind of key points here down. First one, how do you see happiness? Because if you ask someone, what do you want from a life? They'll be like, I just want to be happy. And they, first of all, will think that happiness is about feeling good all the time. Or the people around them, if they're not happy, so if they're not feeling good, they're not happy. Well, happy life isn't as simple as that. A happy life is about having some purpose, having some values, investing time and energy into people that you love and care about. It's all the components that I talk about on this podcast. That's part of a happy life. But a component there is also remembering that you're going to have days when you struggle and days when you don't feel as good, days when you feel a bit low. Actually, some of the people that bring a lot of happiness to your life can also bring some unhappiness at times. And that's how these things work. But I think sometimes we can also think that happiness is just at the peak of this mountain. I just need to climb up a few more steps and I'm there. I finally found happiness. Thank you. Doesn't work like that, okay? We need to be able to see happiness as a process. It's all about those small daily actions. That is a happy life. Things that bring satisfaction and fulfillment and achievement. Moments of joy, definitely. Moments of laughter, moments of connection. Engaging in the things that bring the most value to you and others is all part and parcel of it. But that isn't always going to be sunshine and rainbows. You also start to realise that your self-growth isn't about completing something and getting to an end destination. So whether it's happiness or growth, you're not seeing these things as, right, once I find happiness, once I get to a place of this place in life, I achieve this certain metric or certain outcome, everything will be fine. Life will be happy, life will be sorted. It really doesn't work that way, guys, okay? And again, you probably know that. You're listening to this podcast, you're clearly intelligent. But again, as I always say, understanding this intellectually isn't the same as understanding this emotionally or experientially. Catch yourself when you start to realise that you're saying you'll be happy when. Life might be a little bit easier or harder at times. That's not what we're debating. Okay, there's situations you think, God, I just want to get through this now. Life might be a bit smoother. Great, but there'll still be challenges. Just look a little bit different. So you're not just trying to fix everything in your life just to think that things are going to be perfect once you've fixed everything. It doesn't work like that at all. this is probably one of the most key parts of today's podcast because it's about perspective. It's about some things that I've been alluding to already. It's a skill set to try and walk the middle path. And this alludes to what I was talking about at the beginning of the podcast. You've got this emotional piece, you've got this logical, rational piece. What we're trying to do is listen to both. And go, right, well, here's what some of my emotions are telling me. Don't have to take it all at face value, but I want to listen to some of that, be open to some of that, because that can help guide me. Not going to dictate everything, but I can use it as some information. But also what's going on here, logically, rationally, what's going on. Because what can happen is if you're not aware of your emotions, funnily enough, they can start to cloud some of your judgments. They can cloud your perspective. They can cloud the way that you view the world. And suddenly you think you're being rational, but you're actually being highly emotional. But because you haven't caught the emotion, you're being more dictated and more guided and pushed around by your emotions than what you realise. And this is where all these aspects of today's podcast and all the other podcasts are all interconnected. And you'll see I kind of recap and go over the same themes. I bang these drums again and again and again because we all need to remind ourselves, we all need to continually do this work just in the same way you would exercise. You don't just exercise for 2 weeks and go, that's sorted. Hopefully you find a way to be consistent with your exercise. That's what really gets you the benefits. And yes, with some of this work, you're probably already doing some of it now without even realising it. And certain things you're going to go, actually, I'm not really doing that. No wonder I'm struggling. I can't find this middle path. I'm really rigid and tied into this and just so kind of Mr. Rational, just can't even entertain how I'm feeling about anything. Or some people are just highly emotional to the stage where they get totally consumed by their emotions and can never get perspective, can never get rational focus, can never find balance. We're trying to develop this wise mindset we can walk the middle path. Absolutely vital. To add in, to finish off the podcast, I want to say that it's easy to creep into wanting to be perfect. Like I was talking about this earlier. To want to show the world this sort of perfectionism. But actually, it doesn't really move you forward at all. And anyone who's trying to especially get involved in making content, me being one of these, you've definitely pretty quickly got to let go of being a perfectionist. Now, luckily, it wasn't one of my weaknesses. I've actually got many flaws, but being a perfectionist isn't one of them. I've generally been okay with not being perfect and just letting things be how they've been. But I know perfectionism is something that holds a lot of people back. Okay, I think part of developing balance and a good, healthy perspective and good mindset is trying to let go of being a perfectionist. Learning to trust in yourself is the key. That's what all this stuff is about today, really. Understand yourself, to trust yourself, and being able to, and this is such a key thing to finish off on today. You know you're in a good place mentally. You know you're processing things really well in life. When things have happened to you that you don't want, you don't like, that are painful, and you can see the meaning in them. You can say, you can connect, you can feel that this thing was important. Again, the highlighted word is feel. Because you're intelligent, intellectually, you probably know hard times, I talk about all the time, can build resilience, build strength, build robustness, build your capacity to cope with life lessons, wisdom, etc. But you've actually got to experience the hardship and then find a way to find meaning in that. Can you do that with some of the most painful experiences of your life so far? Can you say, well, actually, this thing happened, it was horrible? I mean, it might even be, you know, the death of a loved one, like hard. You know, I've lost a parent, I know what that's like. But you can say, well, that's part of life, I can say that. But I can also say, well, actually, it did allow me to think about death. And actually connect with death in a bit of a deeper way. And that made me think about, wow, well, I'm not going to be around forever. What's the impact that I want to have on the world over the rest of my life? What's the impact I want to have on my daughter? What type of father do I want to be? Loads of things about my dad's death that made me think deeply about who I am as a father, who I am as a person, and about death itself. So actually I can find meaning in what wasn't a nice experience. It's not a nice experience to lose a parent, to lose someone that you love and care about. But there are opportunities to gather lessons or wisdom or growth from that pain and hardship. All the time I'd be in the, maybe the early mindset of just not even being able to process it or make room for that. Understandable, because you're grieving. But at some point I've got to be able to go, okay, well, it's not a nice thing, but of course, most of us are going to lose our parents at some point. Then can we start to also realise it gives us an opportunity to hopefully process emotions? It gave me a chance to go, okay, well, I've got some painful emotions here. Let's try and practice what you preach, James. Oh, don't like that. But to be open to some of the sadness and a host of different emotions that can come up there as well. Okay, take home. Mental health is a practice, just like physical health. That's why I use the word mental fitness a lot. It's not a destination, it's not getting to a certain endpoint, it's a constant work in progress. It is about checking in with yourself, giving yourself a bit of space, just a bit of a breathe. It might be a bit of a walk, it might be the ability to sit still for 5 minutes, to breathe or meditate, just to be open to some reflective practices. Some people like to journal, some people come and speak to me, that's a reflective practice. We all need something in our lives. Just remember, all this stuff can seem really, really big, but something I really want to kind of highlight as much as possible in each podcast is just take away one thing, two things, and go, you know what I need to do? Work on my relationships a little bit more. You know what I need to do? I need to be a bit more open to my emotions and not just walk the logical path, because I'm not processing emotions and that's numbing me to the world. I'm shutting off from certain people. I'm pushing certain people away because I'm not open to building depth and connection because those emotions are too uncomfortable to entertain. Whatever it is for you. But today it was about making you reflect, as it always is. If this has landed with you, please share it with somebody who you also think it would land with, someone else you think it would also help. And finally, thank you for listening. Thank you for putting the time, energy and effort into your own personal growth and development, because you are your biggest asset. Okay, you are the most important thing to invest into, because when you invest into you, the asset, you can be a better version for the people that you love and care about. Thank you for listening, guys. I'll speak to you very soon.